Hey guys, Titan Preparedness, welcome back to the channel. Let me tell you a little story about when I first got into prepping. When I first started prepping, it was 2012, and I prepped completely wrong looking back at it. I was watching these big name channels at the time, and they were saying, man, you gotta buy my stuff. You gotta buy the things that I sell because I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm talking about. I got 10, 15, 20,000 subscribers, so that's what I was doing. So in 2012, when I first started prepping, the first thing that I bought was food. And not just MREs, or not just cans of food, cans of tuna and Spam. No, I was buying buckets of food. 5, 6, 7 gallons of food at a time. I had no way to prep it. I had no way to actually cook it. I didn't even have the water to go in it, but I had food. When I got home, I got out of prepping for a little while and I got back into it, and I said, this time I'm gonna be better. This time I'm gonna do it right. This time I'm gonna do what needs to be done. So then I turned around, went back to YouTube, and I said, what do I need now that I'm a prepper that's restarting over? So instead of food, I bought gold, silver, and brass. So when I tell you that I messed up when I first started prepping, I 100% messed up. I was buying the wrong things, and so I wanted to do the video today to help out the new folks, to help out those who are just now starting out. The first thing that I recommend that every prepper or every person buys is this right here, a phone charger. Now this one just happens to have some solar panels on it. It happens to have a little flashlight on it. You don't have to get this one. Any sort of phone charging device that you can find. I recommend anything from 10 to 20 to even more milliamp hours. But why do I recommend a phone charger as one of the first things you pick up? How does every horror movie start? You break down in the middle of nowhere, and that person goes to dial 911 or goes to call a buddy, goes to call a friend, and boop, their cell phone's dead. They can't use it. When the power goes out at work and you get, oh man, I gotta check in on my kids, I gotta check in on my wife, because you've been playing on it all day and not focusing on work, oh, it's dead. So now your prime communication device and the device that can give you entertainment and information is gone. I can't tell you how many times that I've sat around in the dark because of a power outage playing some game on my phone. How many times I used that phone as the flashlight so my kids could see around the house so they could play something on the floor, play with their cars, play with their dollies. A lot of situations that you are going to face are going to be more inconvenient situations than they are going to be life-altering, world-ending like we, the prepping channels, want to preach about. A simple flat tire is not that big of a deal. In the middle of the summer, in the middle of fall, it's not that big of a deal, right? But it does become an emergency when I've got my kids with me and it's 12 degrees outside. When it's 115 degrees outside and I've got a van full of little shitlins. It becomes an emergency by simple plug and play some extra components. And again, every horror movie starts out the same way. Oh, you go to call 911 or whomever, the phone's dead. This fixes that. Now this video is not going to focus on food and water, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, food and water first and second. Yes, of course, we are past that point, okay? We are getting in more to the weeds. Food and water, yes, of course, stock up on those first. We are moving on to the items, not the food and the water. All right, number 2, some sort of cooking system. You've got propane, isobutane, sterno camping, and a City Bonfires. So 4 different types of fuel to get a meal going. Now, of course, you should be stocking up on food and water. Fantastic, right? But with the food and the water, you are limited to what is open and eat style meals. Pop-Tarts, SpaghettiOs, anything that does not require cooking. MREs, breads, right? Cereals, anything that does not require you to actually have a cooking source. This expands what food you can stock up on. A simple propane canister with a little $20 topper on it. You can put any pot, any pan from your kitchen on this item, and now you can scramble up some eggs, you can make macaroni and cheese, you can make mountain house meals, you can boil up that water, you can do whatever you want to do. Same thing with the isobutane stove, right? Little canisters are $5, $10 on Amazon, and this one fits in a pocket a whole lot easier than this one does. Now I can make mountain house meals. Now I can heat up those MREs. Now I can heat up anything and everything in my kitchen. Sure, it's not going to be as convenient as an air fryer or microwave, but anything and everything in my kitchen I can put on top of one of these two things and now cook. For your apartment preppers, right? These two are gas-based. Very difficult to have in an apartment. Somebody asked me that the other day, if sterno was good for an apartment. Yeah, it's shelf stable. It's not going to light itself on fire. There's not going to be any type of output as far as fumes go. So if you live in an apartment, something like a sterno or a City Bonfires or the normal sterno, right? Any one of these gel-based fuels or candle-based fuels is going to be your way to go. And again, you can buy a simple little setup like this right here. Boom, this goes in here. Now your frying pan, your pot, whatever goes right on top, and you're cooking, you're wheeling and dealing like a hibachi chef. Now for you homeowners, hey, forget this stuff and just go out and get you a charcoal or a propane stove, right? Very simple. You're gonna be using it at least every summer, at least every Memorial Day, right? And have some big 20-pound propane cylinders as backup. But again, your apartment preppers, you are limited on what you can and can't have. Some people are going to say, well, I have sticks and trees outside. I'm just going to use those. Cool. What happens when it rains? Okay. The people up that were affected by Hurricane Helene, they had 2 to 3 to 5 to 7 days of rain. Can you go out and find enough dry sticks and dry pieces of wood to get a meal going? Maybe, maybe not. And maybe you've pre-collected it and you've got it in a 5-gallon drum or a 5-gallon bucket and now it's nice and dry. Great, fantastic. What happens when that runs out? The number 3 thing that I think every new prepper should buy is a generator, a solar generator, or a cooler. Now we're already starting to get big money, right? Everything else before this was like 20, 30, 40 bucks, but now we're talking about buying a generator. We're talking about at least $100. A solar generator, $700 to $800. Or a cooler, depends on which kind. Have a way to keep your freezer and the food in the freezer either going or cold. Again, I'm thinking Hurricane Helene type event. It took weeks, if not months, for them to get back to a sense of normalcy. Every year, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee are affected by hurricanes. Out west, it's the earthquakes, it's the derenchos, it's, you know, the tornadoes down in Alabama, right? So every year you're going to be affected by something. Ask yourself, I have a freezer full of food that I could eat during a disaster. How am I going to keep it cold? Maybe you have the budget to go out and buy a gasoline generator. And you think, yep, hey, cool, gasoline generator, I'm good. Make sure you buy non-ethanol fuel gas, right? Made that mistake, hey, I fixed it. Have non-ethanol gas and have enough fuel to run that freezer, not the house, but just that freezer for 3 to 5 days, maybe 7 days, okay? You don't have to run everything in your house. You don't have to plug everything up. Just keep that freezer going because that freezer has food. Food means life. What about the more expensive, but better for the environment, you know, long-term approach, which is a solar generator? We have reviewed solar generators here on this channel and we've gone cheap ones, which was the Opes Explorer 1200, which would power a freezer for over 20 hours. And we've gone the ones that are $3,000 to $4,000 a piece, which was the Ecoflow Delta Pro, which will power a freezer for 3 to 4 days. Which one would I prefer? I prefer the big one. However, it is easier to recharge the smaller ones and easier to move them around because maybe my house isn't affected, but the neighbor's is, but my buddy's is, but so-and-so's is. I can take a small like Explorer generator to their house versus a big Ecoflow Delta Pro that weighs over 100 pounds and's got the 100-pound backup battery, okay? And again, you might get about 20 hours to 3 or 4 days on that, running it constantly. Remember, a freezer does not have to be ran constantly. You can unplug it for a couple hours a day. I usually run mine for about 6 hours a day while the lights are on. Now, maybe you say, hey buddy, that's a great idea, but I cannot afford to go out and spend $150 on that or $8,000 on a solar generator for my entire house. What am I supposed to do? a simple cooler. Now, depending on how much food you have in your freezer, and the size of your freezer depends on the size of your cooler. Understand, the less stuff in the cooler, the more ice you can put in, the longer it lasts. However, that's more stuff that goes bad. So I have both a chest and a stand-up freezer. Each one of those would require about 75 quarts of space just to put the majority of it in. Not even like all of it, but the majority of each one of those freezers would go in there, and then we would kind of eat on whatever's left over. And maybe you've only got the one above the fridge that's like, you know, yay freaking big. You don't need a big, massive cooler for that, okay? Have a small enough cooler to put everything in, and then put some ice blocks in it, put some ice in it, and worst case scenario, if you do have some dead space in your freezer, go ahead and fill up a couple 1-gallon jugs or a couple 1-gallon bags, and then when the power outage does hit and you're moving everything over to the cooler after about 5 to 6 hours, then you can start putting those ice bags in there. You've already got them. Once they go unfrozen, then they become water for your drinking, okay? Then all you have to do is drive around until you find a couple bags of ice. Awesome. The fourth thing that I think every new prepper should have and buy first is lights. When Hurricane Irma hit my house rolling through, I was prepped up and ready to go for the apocalypse and bugging out and living out in the woods for weeks on end. But I was not ready to live at home. That was the problem with my plan up until that point. Now, up until that point, I was not a new dad. I was not a family man. I didn't own my own house, so I didn't really care. But then I did become all that, and Irma hit, and I was like, oh crap, I don't even have flashlights. I've got the one in my bug out bag, but that's about it. I don't have candles. I don't have lanterns. I don't have anything for my home. And my home needs to be the saving grace. My kids and my wife need to feel safe in case something happens, which is kind of why I revamped my prepping after that. If you have kids, or if you live in an apartment where they don't allow fire, candles don't mix, right? So I would love to say, hey, go out and buy a couple 100-hour candles from the Dollar Tree store for $1.25 a piece. Fantastic. And that works for 99% of us, unless you live in an apartment. If you live in an apartment, they say no fire, they mean no fire. If you have kids and they say no fire, it means kids and fire don't mix, right? Because little Johnny is going to stick his damn hand in that fire and go, ow, it's hot. Now you got to make a trip to the emergency room during the power outage, during the tornado, during the hurricane, right? You don't want to do that. So on top of having things like kerosene lanterns, which are a flame source, or candles, which are also a flame source, have something that is not a flame source. Battery powered flashlights, headlamps, and lanterns. This is a very, very simple thing to do. It does not require you to go out and spend a ton of money. Now this one's like 50 bucks. But here on this channel, we have talked about, maybe not reviewed, but talked about a little flashlight that's like $10. It's rechargeable. It's 10 bucks. And that battery charger from earlier, you can keep recharging these devices. I personally like rechargeable flashlights. Again, I've got enough battery sources that I can recharge these and pass them out to the neighbors and friends. Maybe you don't. Maybe you say the way you want to go is a battery operated system. Hey, fine, buy a bunch of batteries, right? Get a big Sam's Club battery pack, and then have battery powered lanterns, battery powered flashlights, battery powered whatever, right? And think about it this way. A lot of people say lights are not important. I don't need power and lights to survive. Great, fantastic. Let's say your house gets flattened. You are safe, but you are under a pile of rubble. This, with it turned on, I can say, hey, look, come save me. With it turned off, it's pitch black at night. Hey, Johnny, come save me. They ain't seeing nothing, okay? Let's talk about your neighbors, right? Your neighbor's house gets flattened. It's the middle of the night, tornado rolled through, flattened their house, and you're gonna go save little old man, right? How are you gonna be able to see? There's gonna be nails, there's gonna be wood, there's gonna be sticks, trees, who knows what, parts of cars. Are you really gonna dive in that pile of rubble to go try to save him if you can't see? Common sense says to be able to rescue someone or to be rescued, they have to see me. I have to see them. The fifth thing that every new prepper should buy is a tourniquet. A good tourniquet, not an Amazon special, Walmart special, 50 cents for a tourniquet, not a rat's tourniquet because they're trash. A cat or a soft T tourniquet. You might have zero medical knowledge to save your life, and that is okay. you can figure out through a YouTube video before you need it how to properly apply a tourniquet. Keep that tourniquet either on your person or in your vehicle if you are driving. What I recommend is center console. I've got my boomstick and I've got a tourniquet. Understand that this goes beyond prepping. This goes beyond, you know, let's prep for doomsday and the apocalypse and This is you going to jail. If you hit somebody, boom, and they die, you are now being charged with vehicular manslaughter. The most common death in a battlefield is bleeding out. If an artery is nicked, a person can bleed out within 3 to 5 minutes. Maybe you're at some sort of event, somebody opens fire. Maybe you're at some sort of event and your buddy cutting a tree cuts his arm. You're at some sort of event, guy on a motorcycle wrecks, legs over here, he's over here. It does happen. People bleed out and body parts are lost and arteries are nicked in a civilian side world. Have a tourniquet, know how to use it. I'm not saying go out here and spend $200, $300, $400 on a medical kit that you don't know what you're doing. You will get somebody injured. However, a simple tourniquet and how to apply it, videos are fantastic and you can learn and you can even practice on yourself. Please don't tighten it too far down. But train as you practice. You can buy practice tourniquets and teach your kids, hey, how do you apply this? Okay? A tourniquet will keep you out of jail. What's the point in prepping if your butt is in jail? All right, guys, let me know what you think about the list. Approve, disapprove, agree, disagree, pros, cons. Well, you didn't go over, yeah, I know. Well, you didn't go over firearms and ammunition and body armor and C4. Do you need that stuff? Yes, but it needs to be later on, okay? It's cool, the Gucci gadgets, gears, and gizmos are awesome for later on. But a ammo stockpile of 308 is not going to help you when the power goes out. It might help you when the world ends, but when the power goes out and your kids are hungry, it's not going to help you. So that's all I got for today's video. Hope y'all have a good day. Stay safe. Enjoy. That's all I got.